All right, welcome back, Rebels. Time for a weekly update. So, have some interesting things happening here. A couple good lessons and takeaways today as well. So, we'll just get cracking. Looks like we're off to a strong start for the week, anyhow. Bitcoin seems to have broken through this trend line, which is the kind of the breakout area. And if I zoom out just a little bit, you can see we've kind of been in between a rock and a hard place here, just Bitcoin and the market in general, trying to figure out where are we going? Are we going to break below this trend line for lower prices? Are we going to break above this trend line, possibly seeking higher prices? And so far, tentatively, very early days, it looks like we're poking our head through here. I'm probably not going to get too terribly excited until we make it above this swing low and these tops here. Um, so that's just something to keep in mind. But so far, we've been pretty good at, kind of keeping track and thinking, what are the coming moves? I mean, so far we've kind of pinned this as a potential low in the market. And I had this box up here, well before we got to these prices. I think even before we broke down this level here, I in previous videos kind of showed some ways to measure out and get an idea where might the market go. And it hit right on the nuts, and we've gone up from there. So anyway, I'm still tentatively thinking that this is the low. We have liquidity models and other things. A lot of signals are flashing um, a bottom and more upside to come, which is funny because I just posted in the group today that I got out of all of my shorter term leverage positions. And that was, we were just right before the breakout, basically. And so, my thought process there is I'll go to show you, and I mentioned in the group, is if we look at the exchange volume, it's looking a little dicey. It's not what I wanted to see. We're getting kind of excited here because we had just peeked through our trend line here. This was in a downtrend, and we had just poked through that downtrend and a nice rounded bottom here. But I had mentioned that we want to see higher lows form after this to get more confirmation. So really don't want to see the exchange volume fall below this low here that we had back in September of 24. So anyway, seasonally, and I haven't gone through the charts myself, but it's been pointed out to me that seasonally the Easter time is kind of low volume. And you have to be careful in low volume environments because it can kind of swing the price either way. If there's not a lot of liquidity in the market, sometimes it can mean that those moves can get a little volatile. So my worry was if we're in a low volume environment, we have prices rising on low volume. That's usually kind of a sick sign, a weak sign. And so anyway, I just felt like it was a good time to de-risk and just hold off a little minute until we get a little bit more signal and clarification of what's happening. So I wanted to see Bitcoin show some strength first. And I mean, I don't like that we're getting fresh lows on the exchange volume. Now that could be because we're in that seasonal time during Easter. Things typically get a bit quiet. Maybe we can run through a couple spots in the charts going back and looking how those ranges are kind of tight during those times, and then they go one way or the other. So anyhow, that's what made me post that. So this is a good it's just a good learning lesson because nobody knows what's going to happen. And a lot of times you're going to make moves and you're going to feel like you're like, oh man, the market must have just known that I sold everything and that's why it's going up, or vice versa. It can go the other way. So just not to get caught up in your emotions about it. I had a reason that I got out of the market, and I stand by that um, because we're still in a low volume environment. You can see down here, the volume has been decreasing, and then we'll just see what the volume prints for this day. And maybe we have some volume creeping up. We'll have to see over the course of the next week what that's like. But why don't we just get into a weekly chart of Bitcoin? And the major levels I was watching was this 50% level here and this trend line here. And so far, we have two weekly closes above this level, which is great. Um, if we start seeing prices higher than this, that is a nice first step. As far as the weekly trend goes, we'll have a neutral weekly trend. And that'll happen before you get an uptrend on the weekly. The weekly is usually stronger, longer lasting trends, basically, at the cost of higher prices, potentially. So we're looking for our overbalance in time and price, which is going to be coming in around above these tops roughly and I'll have to look at the time, but I don't think there's not a lot of time that we have to deal with as far as that goes. So we'll keep track of that signal as well. This is all early days, looking good, looking healthy, looking strong. From here, Bitcoin in general has held up exceptionally well during this time, and it's very interesting because typically during uncertain times, Bitcoin will draw down more significantly, and it's held up very well during this uncertainty, actually. So why don't we just kind of check it out versus the Nasdaq? I mean, absolutely great. We've had so much FUD and uncertainty for the last while, and Bitcoin has just been absolutely outperforming the Nasdaq, which is crazy, and almost into fresh highs. So it'll be very interesting to see how potentially we even outperform the Nasdaq in the coming months. So things to keep track of. But I like that. A couple of weekly holds above that level is very good, and we will just see how we hold from here. I like what I see there. So moving on quickly, why don't we just really quick go to the liquidation data again? I've mentioned this before, but we had massive liquidations in when was this? The end of February. Yeah, massive liquidations and for several weeks. Outflows. This is not liquidation map. This is outflows. Massive outflows. And typically, the way I'm reading this is retail generally gets it wrong, or the masses generally get it wrong at the extremes. And so if you look right here, we had the largest amount of inflows in this week and essentially went sideways. I mean, the price poked a little higher, but we essentially just went straight sideways since uh, yeah, basically end of November last year. So that's kind of what I'm saying. And in a way, since this massive liquidation or outflows rather of the Bitcoin ETFs, basically sideways. Haven't seen much action there. So I do like to see that. It's giving me a little more confidence that we have seen a low. And as I mentioned before, we'll keep tracking that over balance and time and price to confirm that. And then that is going to give us a lot more confidence in the altcoin market as well. So let's dive into. I've kind of been looking around for some opportunities lately to get into um, to get into some leverage positions. Like I said, I did just get out of all my leverage positions, which I'm happy that I did. I just kind of wanted to sit back, reassess, and see where we go from here. And so one example here, this is on the daily time frame, um, is I have an order above this swing high here, where if triggered, I'll go long at this point because this will basically be continuing our uptrend on the daily. You can see that'll basically just be a continuation of that. So I kind of like what I see there. Where did I have? There's a particular chart that I'm looking for. Actually, maybe I won't find it. Hmm. Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Okay, gotcha. Sorry. I was a little backwards. So one thing as I was going through, kind of looking for different opportunities, one thing I did want to do was buy a swing break here. So we're in a daily uptrend. We're basically just going with the trend, seeming like we're kind of in a bottoming structure here. If you take a look at this, we have a what looks like a reverse head and shoulders here. I'm going to get rid of a bunch of these. This is an old trend line. If I were to zoom out, this is a trend line that we've broke, and I'm wanting to see some nice holds above this level, which is the 50% of this most recent move. So I'm going to delete that as well. Yeah, and this is all early stages. This is really fishing for the bottom. Like assuming that this is the bottom, and we did just print a higher low here, and we have this bottoming structure that kind of looks like a reverse head and shoulder. I don't necessarily trade those patterns, but they do have this particular pattern does have a relatively high um, success rate. Basically, I think it's like 80%. Now that doesn't mean it's like the forever bottom and prices only go up, but it is a bottoming structure or a topping structure that has a pretty high hit rate as far as that goes. But like I said, I don't trade that, but I kind of just look at it as, oh, okay, this kind of fits into my thesis of this may be the bottom. We are also seeing that bottoming structure. And then if I zoom out even farther, um, between this is just altcoins in general where flatline liquidity comes in, flatline liquidity comes in, flatline. But the the it being very volatile, the one good news is that we are printing so far a macro higher low, and we have this trend line down here as well. So what I'm actually going to do here, even though it's early days, because and this is where it comes to you have to know yourself. I know myself. I really like being in the market. I wanted to basically cut my positions and start fresh and start searching for opportunities. And it just so happened before the call, I was looking at this particular chart and I wanted to go long on a break of this here. That's one strategy is to go with the move and buy with the momentum. Um, see, and this is the thing to look at too, is we have pretty weak volume here. So not necessarily 100% convincing, but at the same time, we are starting to see some strength. And if I know myself and I'm like, man, I'd like to be in the market some way, somehow, um, in general, because that's just, otherwise, if I put a little bit into the market, I'm less likely to try to ape in and get really excited and throw a bunch of money in. So I'm like, I'll put $100 in here just so that I feel a little bit better about it, even knowing full well that I don't necessarily want to go all in. So that's not what you should do, but you should know yourself and am I more likely to do? Am I more likely to see this go higher and then want to put more money in and increase my risk? Or do I look at this and be like, well, on a break of this level, I want to go long. And what I see here is from current price down to this swing low here, 14%, down even farther, 29%. So a couple ways that I would look at this. If I'm convinced that this is the bottom, uh, then I would say that if prices break here, that ends my thesis. And so really what I need to decide is how much risk do I want to take and where do I want to put my stop loss? So what I'm thinking right now, as I see this is 15% move. And so what I could do is I could use a 5x leverage. I would give myself 20% leeway. And then I just have to decide how much money am I willing to lose if this goes south on me. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. I'm just actually I've logged into my MEXC account here, and we're going to go to the futures, and we're just going to place a little trade. Once this loads up here. Okay, great. So I'm in my futures account. And what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go look up CETUS because that's what we're tracking. The other thing that I'm going to mention too, this one is the opportunity that I see right now because it just broke that swing top and I would like to get in on the move if I can. But I don't want to go through and just add a position to 5 different coins because if I'm wrong, probably going to be wrong 5 times. So there's no sense. I'm basically just testing the waters here to get an idea. And if prices go higher and you get more confirmation, well, then I can actually go into the market with more conviction, with more confidence, and possibly more risk. But right now, I'm not really willing to risk a lot because things look possibly dicey. I mean, maybe this is the low of the exchange volume. This lags a little bit. It's the 7-day moving average. It depends on how granular you want to get. So hopefully I'm not over explaining that, but like I said, because I know myself, I want to get into the market. So that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an isolated position. Right now I'm going to do a market order because we're basically right where I was thinking. And let me just go back to the chart here, make sure everything's hunky-dory here. Yeah, I'm totally okay with this. And like I said, I know what my downside is. 20% gives me a little bit of leeway. And if we broke this swing low here, we'd be neutral on the daily. So we would basically break the pattern of higher lows, and then we would end up with a lower low and a higher high. And that would be a neutral trend. So we wouldn't have the trend confluence that we have right now, which is, we're got the green lights on the daily time frame. And if I were to get down into the 4 hour, we have an uptrend on the 4 hour as well. So a little bit of short-term confluence there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to market order. And for me, I just want $1,000 in the market right now. And so what does that mean that I'm risking? $200. I'm willing to risk $200, basically starting out with a $5,000 account. I got 5,200, whatever. If I'm wrong, not really worried about it, because the thing is like, what's going to keep me up at night? What was keeping me up at night was having too many open positions in an environment that seems illiquid and could possibly turn against me. So managing my risk is the number one thing. Like, I can be wrong here and I can lose the $200. I could be right here and I can make a little bit of money. So it's about knowing yourself and managing your risk. I'm not willing to put any more than $200 in the market right now because I'm not sure how much that's going to go. I'm using pretty high leverage here, but I'm effectively using my leverage as my stop loss. So that's kind of how that works. So what we can do here, why don't we just open this sucker and then we'll just go and plot that on the chart. Okay, so the average price is 0.1077. So I'm just going to pop this sucker over here. 0.77. Oh, 0.78. Why don't we go? There you go. Just because we want to be accurate. And then the liquidation level is 86.74 right here. 86.74. Bam. And then there we go. And then I got to start thinking about too, like, where do I want to target as far as to the upside? You know, I mean, honestly, this is where, for me, honestly, like, I would love to just ride this thing up to, it'd be great to ride it up to these all-time highs. I have no doubt in my mind that if we are seeing the strength and we are going to the upside over the coming months, I have zero doubt in my mind that we will eclipse this, but we have to kind of play this by ear as we go, because we have a lot of resistance in this zone here. Actually, if I do this, I'll just draw this out ahead of time. Here, there's a pretty significant amount of resistance here and even here. So as time goes on, and we're just following the market, we can decide, are we going to like just let the whole dang thing ride, or are we going to be sensible? And basically I have $1,000 position here. We get up to here, that's 100%. Maybe what I do is I pull that $1,000 and be happy, and then I can let the rest ride. I'd have $1,000 position from here, and then to all-time highs here, another 100%. There's ways to do it. There's no really right or wrong way. The whole thing is to have a plan. And what I would like to do is I would like to capture the bottom of some of these that I have conviction in, and just kind of ride it out. Because really, if it works, if it doesn't work, I lose $200. If it works, 360, I make $3,600, just cashing out at all-time highs. So like I said, there's no right or wrong, but the idea is just to have a dang plan. So my stop loss is below this swing low here. And, this could turn against me real quick, at which point I would know that I was happy that I didn't risk even more. And if it goes ahead, I'm happy because, I made the right decision at the moment. It's like, you're always going to wish that you put in more at the bottom, and you're always going to wish you sold more at the top. So you just kind of have to be aware of that as far as that goes. So I'm not sure if there's really a whole lot more to go on this week. except for what I just said. We're seeing some low volume. That's got me a little concerned. I'm not going to be super excited about any of these rallies. I have a couple, alerts set doing a similar strategy where, my thesis is that this is the bottom, right? So, and if we break these highs here, we're kind of continuing on the uptrend, and we'll just kind of keep an eye on these trends and how it interacts with these zones, and we'll get in smaller positions as the market goes up. And then basically what my plan is once Bitcoin itself overbalances in time and price, and we see a little bit more momentum in the altcoin space, I will probably get back in the market with higher conviction. Hyperliquid's one of my favorites so far. That's been a pretty decent trade, relatively low risk. Ended up catching a decent part of the bottom, and I mean, altogether probably cashed out about 2 grand. Of profits there. No big deal. That was good. Um, and so, I would like to build a larger position in this. So as we do this, oh, the other thing I wanted to mention too, it's in my Telegram group, but we have about $5,000 in this account, and we're just going to track it. I don't see a lot of influencers or YouTubers actually showing their actual P&L with real dollars. And so, I just like a $5,000 account's pretty reasonable, something that a lot of people could probably aspire to, if to give themselves 5,000 to start an account, and then see, and we're just going to see what we can do with it. I've had larger accounts before, but what I found is, you know, I guess really what I find out for myself is that I'm not really willing to risk more than that on leverage positions, because leverage in crypto is kind of actually insane, if I'm being honest. But I've had some success with it in the past, and so that's just what we're going to track. And I'm going to track my trades in the Telegram group, and we'll, good, bad, or ugly, we're just going to follow it, and we're going to learn together. And I'll share the successes and share the losses. That's the other thing, is everybody, I think, has this idea that trading is, there's this grandiose idea about it, that it's just like an ATM, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to make all this money. And it's really not about that. It's honestly more about discovering yourself and mastering yourself, more than trying to master the markets or anything like that. It's managing your risk, managing yourself, your own psychology. Um, and so really, yeah, it's a little bit more about self mastery and knowing yourself. So I'm explaining what I'm doing based on myself. I know that I'm more likely to do stupid shit if I see prices going up like crazy. But I also have the analytical mind where I'm like, well, tentatively, there's a lot of signs saying this is the bottom, and I believe that it is. But we were getting this low volume signal, so got me a little iffy on it. So how am I gonna do that in real time? How am I gonna have exposure to the market, um, a little bit of exposure, so that I don't feel panicked to get into the market and FOMO in? But how do I also make sure that I'm not doing that now, ahead of time, and just losing my butt because I wasn't listening to my analytical brain saying, like, hey, this is a warning sign. I just wanted to showcase that kind of in real time. This is me just going over my own weekly reviews. What am I seeing in the market? What kind of opportunities am I looking for? Really, what I would love to see on this, and these things are stronger on the weekly. One thing I really like about Hyperliquid is that we just got a neutral on the weekly. That is absolutely lovely. So if we can start seeing closes and higher lows above this zone, that would be a great place to go in with conviction and with size. Now, did we lose the bottom? Well, not necessarily, because I went in with lower risk and I was able to get a little bit of profit from the bottom, but I'll have higher conviction when all the things start to line up in a larger way. So that's kind of what I wanted to highlight there. And then I would just kind of go through in a similar fashion, putting my overbalance and time and prices on everything. So with Beam, I've been playing around with some positions down here. I'd love to get a larger position, basically in the lower half of this range. And so we have an overbalance of time and price that gets us to this level here. And so I mean, here's the deal. we could probably come in with a little more conviction once we break this top because we'll be in a weekly uptrend, if I'm not mistaken, if that is in fact a higher low, which it is barely. Um, and so yeah, anyway, we can probably go in with a little bit more conviction once we hit this level. Here, a break to the upside would be a weekly uptrend. Level to the downside is 53%, which is honestly perfect because I think 2x leverage is probably my favorite. I mean, I know I went in higher leverage here basically to set my stop loss, but 50% just feels a little bit better because if I have $5,000, but I don't want to put it all into Beam or don't want to put it all into Hype, I could find high conviction areas to enter both of those and kind of gives me double the chances. I don't know if gaming is going to pop off first or if Hyperliquid's going to pop off first. We don't know that necessarily, but it just kind of allows us to have the potential to get into a couple more things. Because I really do believe like when we break this top and Bitcoin is showing strength, overbalance in time and price from Bitcoin, all the rest of it, stars are aligning even more probability that you're on the right side of the thing, right? So right now, I've gone through a couple of these, and I will probably go through some more and just put myself. Like I said, you don't want to get too crazy. I don't want to get too crazy here, but I think I have like two or three where I have similar orders where I'll hop into something if it has the momentum to the upside and and then just kind of see how that goes. It's basically just dipping a toe, kind of testing the markets to see how we're actually doing. If it goes against me, I'm not really too hurt because I kind of knew that ahead of time, which is why I'm not risking a lot right now. And if prices just took off from here, also I'm not gonna be worried about it because I have a small amount in a couple things that I have conviction in, and that's going to be enough for me until I find it's a lot of waiting. I guess I would say too. That's the thing about trading where you don't want to force a trade. Like I'm trying not to force anything right now. I'm not trying to jump into anything or force it. I have a couple areas that I'm looking at based on my analysis that would give me higher conviction, like this here. If we break this swing top, we're kind of similar pattern. We got a reverse head and shoulders here esque going on, and we've broken this trend line. We'd be in the upper half of this tool here. So as far as this move goes, we'd be in the stronger half. And uh, things we're layering signs of strength on top of each other, right? So, and then there again, too, I'm not going to be risking a lot on this particular token. This had a huge amount of hype and is probably the largest AI agent play around. It's the largest and it's probably going to be the most well known. And AI agents, I think, is kind of a no brainer as far as narrative goes. So even if we got in, even if we got in above here, if we wanted to wait for breaks of this and holds above here, to all time highs itself, that's 470%. If we got in right at that break, call it 700%. That's an 8x just to all time highs. Have no doubts in my mind that this could, I mean, just based on the market cap, this thing could probably easily do a 2 to 3x from here. This is why crypto is so crazy. Let's just do 300%, which actually I guess is a 4x. We're going to keep going. There we go. So this is all theoretical, and don't get caught in this and wait for this to happen, but it's just something I'm going to point out now for you to see why crypto can be so lucrative. If we were to get in on that level to there, that's 2,800%. That's a 29x. So, if I were to put in my small $1,000 position here and it was able to ride, that $1,000 that maybe cost me 500 if I was using 2x leverage, that $500 would turn into 28 grand. Obviously that's kind of an ideal world. Is it going to happen like that? No. That's, I think, the other trap. I wanted to showcase that because that's what a lot of people do is they'll start measuring things out. And like, oh my God, I can get a 28x on this and I can 27x on that and a 30x on this. These things are absolutely possible, but you have no idea what the emotions are going to be in that ride up. And if you look back here, you'd just be like, oh man, I'd have bought here and I'd have sold here, and it would just been that easy. And it just doesn't work like that because your emotions get involved. You get impatient. You want to take some profits. You're not sure. It's a huge mental load and a huge mental game. So wanted to showcase that as keep an eye on yourself. Don't ape into things thinking that you're going to get a 30x. Be reasonable about what your expectations are and what time frame you're working on. I'm getting a little close to the market, so it might actually make sense for me to take profits on this level. We could certainly break through, but it's definitely going to be resistance. So what is that? From a break here to there, that's 40%. That's pretty good. That'd be $400, putting in $1,000 if we're just fishing for a low and kind of testing the waters. You know, that's nice. That $400 gives me the opportunity to, what did I put in Cetus? I put in $200. Kind of gives me the option to start testing a couple other things. So anyhow, I know I'm rambling a little bit on this, but I wanted to showcase a little bit more how I view leverage. I basically just use it to set my stop losses so that I can identify my risk ahead of time. How much am I willing to lose in this environment? Well, right now I've pegged it about $200. That's about all I'm willing to put into this market right now, knowing that, the markets fool most of the people most of the time. So the low volume is a huge red flag right now. Does not mean that we can't go higher from here and that the volume can't increase from here. And that the exchange volume that we're seeing here might put in a bottom here. We might start rounding out and go to the upside. We don't know what's on the right-hand side of the chart. So we just have to play our hand accordingly. So that's how I'm viewing it. That's how I'm taking it. I think so many of these alts that I have on my list here that I'm watching are starting to flatline here, and we're just getting primed for another leg up. So it's typically how it works in crypto. Money comes in, pumps it up, money goes away, it flatlines. Everybody loves it here and wants it, and that's when you should sell. Everybody hates it here, and that's your better buying opportunity. And that's like as simply as I can put it. That doesn't mean ape into everything. Like as I just said, like you have to be a little bit more analytical and uh, keep an eye on your emotions, or you will get wrecked. So let's just a couple little things here that I haven't looked at in quite a while. Looking at Bitcoin dominance, why don't we just put this on a weekly chart? So this entire cycle has just been continuous dominance by Bitcoin, which is why it seems and feels a little bit different this cycle because the altcoins aren't getting as much attention. You can see in you can see even in previous bull markets, we've there's been a few kind of larger, longer running drops in the dominance, meaning that the others' dominance or the rest of the crypto market has had more pumps, more rallies, it seems, like just based on this chart. But here, it's just been a steady grind, and Bitcoin has not given dominance away very much. And in fact, the most that it has this cycle was during this 3 weeks here. Yeah, during basically November to December area. So it gave us this one little window, which was very lucrative. I mean, I will say that it was very lucrative. However, it's just Bitcoin's just not giving it up. It's definitely stealing the spotlight this cycle, and the people who've been in the cycles past who are expecting the same exact thing to happen that has always happened, that's usually when it stops happening that way, right? So I will say that even I've been uh, taken a little bit surprised this cycle because of just the absolute dominance in Bitcoin itself. So anyway, either way, if I were to just go back here, these are weekly tops, and I usually like to draw a box between some significant bottoms and tops, and I'll just drag that across here. This is pretty significant, and obviously, Bitcoin dominance can absolutely come up to this level as well as it has in the past. But right now we are in in a pretty strong resistance level. So we will keep an eye on that and see how Bitcoin dominance ends up kind of reacting to these levels, and we'll see how it reacts to this zone here, just like we were going to watch how Bitcoin reacts to this zone right here. So we've broken out of this zone here, and what we'd really like to see is support above this level. And then with Bitcoin dominance, we kind of want to see things breaking down from here. Otherwise, Bitcoin's probably going to be stealing the show for a little bit longer. USDT dominance. This is probably the messiest chart on the planet. This is a fun thing. I drew this. This is so ugly, but I'm just going to show you what I did for fun anyway. What I did here is I drew this little megaphone up here because a lot of times a broadening pattern at near tops can potentially signal distribution. Typically accumulation is a little bit tighter ranges and distribution a little bit more volatile. And so that's just my representation that like this is the market telling us something that this may be distribution and this may be a top. So I just kind of drew that in there for fun. But we do have an overbalance in time and price here for USDT dominance. So far we've met the time requirement, and soon enough we'll be seeing the price requirement. And two out of three, as far as the next two requirements would be breaking this 50% level and then breaking significant swings, which we'll have to maybe get into the weekly chart for that. So one thing at a time. We've ticked the time requirement. We've been pushed down. Now that we've broken this low, we have met the time requirement. And once we breach this price point, we'll have met the time and price. So we will have overbalanced in time and price. And then for further confirmation, once we break down and get some closes below this 50% level, things are looking better. Things are looking happier. So yeah, I do like to see us breaking down from this, and we'll just have to see how we do on a weekly time frame. So um yeah. So far we've had closes, above this significant level, and we'll just have to see how this week reacts. I'd love to see some weekly closes below this level and some lower highs as well. Others dominance still looking pretty weak. On a very broad sense, we have this pattern right here, and we're kind of weekly below it. But I have this kind of double bottom pattern here. If we end up holding up, this may be somewhat of a double bottom here with price projections up into these levels. We'll just have to keep an eye on that as well. And I think, oh yeah. So this little timeline here is basically just based on previous cycles, the potential end of the others dominance or the end of the alt season could push us into that Q1 of next year. So I kind of just have a line in the sand here where, when we approach this timeline, we're going to want to be extra cautious. And if things are looking really hot by the time we get into this zone, we're probably going to be wanting aggressively taking profits, just because it's going to feel like the market's going to go up forever and nothing can stop it. But based on previous cycles, I mean, like I said, time is the other half of the equation. When you're looking at a chart, you got time and price plotted out on a chart. Time is very significant. So, yep, that about does it. So a couple things we're looking for. We want Bitcoin dominance to break down in a larger way to have more confidence. We want USDT dominance to break down in a larger way to have more confidence. And the entire crypto market here, we want to see the same thing. So I have a level here, overbalance in time and price. We've kind of hit this support zone here. I had this up here on these tops, but because crypto is so volatile as well, it definitely dipped down into this zone. And so we're just going to have to keep track of this too. We're definitely still in a downtrend on the weekly. We are up on the monthly, but it's all very early days. That's another reason why, as you're looking at this chart, we're still in a downtrend. That's another reason why, not going to be going in super heavy right now until we've broken this overbalance in time and price and probably broken above this significant swing here and this 50% level, which we'll just track on the channel. And then at that point, I think that's kind of the higher conviction risk it for the biscuit moment. I don't think the risk it for the biscuit moment is right now. People will think differently. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what YouTube does. It'll be very interesting to see what YouTube does this week as far as the hype goes, because you know when things can just be deceiving. Things look great right now, but it's literally only hindsight. It's only it's only when we're a few weeks from this moment that we will see more clearly what was actually happening, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So this little break here is nice, but even on the weekly, we had less volume here. So we're just going to need to pay attention to what the volume does over the coming weeks and month to see how we're doing. So I think I'm probably just going to leave it there. I think I've rambled on enough, but I just wanted to showcase how I view them. This is how I view the markets, and I just also wanted to get a start on our 5K challenge, and I have a few orders, small positions ready to go there. We'll just keep track of that live, and so you kind of get an idea of, I guess, what trading is actually like. Everybody wants to just put a shit ton of money in and be a millionaire the next day, while there's absolutely incredible opportunity in these markets. It's important to know yourself first and foremost and have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, you will get wrecked. I promise you. Full transparency, I have lost tens of thousands of dollars doing this. So it's like, that's the other thing. I think most people don't talk about their losses, but I've listened to dozens and dozens of interviews with people who trade for decades, and they have all gone through those same pain points of, losing accounts, getting liquidated, having a really great run, and then immediately, after that, giving it all back. It's really a story as old as time. And what I really hope to do with this channel is to just be real about it, because a lot of people on YouTube will just talk about their wins. They'll cherry pick their wins. They'll start 5K challenges, 10K challenges, and then when that doesn't work out so much, it just kind of goes off the wayside and it gets ignored. So I'm like, well, I'll do a 5K challenge and I'll show you my numbers. If I lose $5,000, you're going to be here with me. But if we make some money, you're going to be here with me too. So don't do what I do. I'm hoping to kind of just showcase how I see the market. I'm using Gann analysis. That is my particular edge. Everybody has to have their own edge. Maybe Gann analysis or following the swing charts and using 50% tools isn't your thing, and that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be your edge. Everybody has to find their own edge. But if this is all interesting at all to you, please leave a comment down below. Let me know if there's anybody watching this, anybody listening. Let me know what you like, what you dislike, what you'd like to hear more of, what you'd like to learn about more of. I have the Discord as well. Please join the Discord. Message me personally. Ask me, how the heck do I get into this crypto thing? How do we do this? There's so much money to be made this next year and honestly over the next 10, 15 years. But we just got to be on the right side of the thing, and that's the whole deal. So luckily I've been on the right side of this thing pretty much the entire bull market. But I've learned also a lot of heavy lessons. How I've also lost money during this bull market. How do you lose money in a bull market? Well, I'll show you. I'll show you, and I'll also show you how I've made money in this bull market. And when the thing rolls over, we'll make money in the bear market too. Prices don't have to go up to make money. So that's the other exciting thing. So we're also in a way coming up on. We had one of the larger buying opportunities at the bottom of this bear market when Bitcoin was 15K. We're also going to have a really major selling opportunity coming up. So when the real estate market rolls over and the stock market rolls over, when that actually does happen and the piper does come to call and we all have to pay up and the thing pops, that'll be an extreme selling opportunity. Think of it as a buying opportunity, but basically selling the top of a massive 18-year bull market is kind of like buying the bottom of a massive 3-year bear market, right? So those are all exciting things coming, and we have that to look forward to. So anyway, like I said, I've rambled on long enough. Please leave a comment down below if you found any of this interesting. Share it with anybody who you think would find helpful, and get a hold of me in Discord or on my Telegram. I would love to have a chat, see where you are in your investment journey, what interests you. Yeah, I just love talking about this stuff and love teaching as much as I can. So, yeah, we'll all do this together. We'll grow and get better every day. So we'll talk to you later, guys.